Welcome. This is the large group presentation of the Urban Design Studio. Today, our studio will be presenting on the architecture of urban space, focusing on understanding urban planning and design towards creating good urban environments. This study explores urban transformation in order to understand how change happens and how it can be guided in future. The presentation is structured as follows. First, we will introduce you to our studio and smaller groups, whom you will hear from later. Secondly, we investigate our focus area within Hatfield through various forms of data gathering and mapping, focusing on four main components of urban design. Lastly, we outline a SWOT analysis and problem statement, intending to inform the who, what, when, where, why, and how of our smaller group proposals. Our studio consists of 16 students, pictured here, and has been subdivided into 4 smaller groups to present individual proposals on how the investigated area may develop over time. Moving into where, this studio uses Hatfield as our general context for a place-specific study to explore urban transformation and to understand how change happens and how it can be guided in future. Our focus is the space between the Hatfield and Hillcrest University campuses, a rapidly changing urban fabric with the potential to become a unified city campus. This would integrate campus life with the city, creating a more connected and dynamic environment. Recognizing this potential for expansion, our mapping focuses on these 5 blocks. For our individual presentations, our proposals will focus on intervening in blocks 3 to 5. These blocks offer the most potential and flexibility for intervention, as they are not already completely owned by the university and house a variety of users, functions, and opportune spaces, as you will soon see. Ultimately, the studio's objective is to create a cohesive understanding of Hatfield's urban environment, which will be utilized to propose various interventions within the targeted urban fabric. By enhancing our understanding of Hatfield, the studio aims to propose interventions that are suitable to the existing context and that promote better urban conditions. Working pragmatically, our studio followed an exploratory approach to data gathering and mapping. This consisted of site walks, sketching, photographical documentation, physical mapping, desktop studies, reading various literature, and modeling existing conditions using maquettes and a Revit model. This information was then synthesized by the studio group within this presentation. For our mapping, it was important to identify the pertinent stakeholders to this unified city campus. The stakeholders informed the various requirements for such an expansion to occur and what sorts of interventions would become successful within our targeted area. Our primary stakeholders are those identified as builders. These are the University of Pretoria Management as our primary client and the City of Tshwane's municipality, as any proposals will be required to suit the larger spatial development frameworks already in place. Our secondary stakeholders are the reinforcers, who, alongside building tenants, will take ownership of the urban environment. The Hatfield City Improvement District will therefore play a critical role in the management and regulation of the unified city campus expansion, ensuring that it remains controlled, engaging, and safe. Lastly, we consider the everyday users of urban environment and its buildings. It is critical to respond to user needs and desires to ensure that the expansion is suitable, inhabitable, functional, and thereby successful.
Now that we have explored various scales of analysis, we bring our findings together. This synthesis connects the mapping, observations, and user considerations to form a comprehensive understanding of the site. These insights will guide informed design decisions moving forward. However, before we can propose anything, we need to understand urban design. Urban design is the process of shaping the physical and spatial organizations of cities, integrating architecture, public space, infrastructure, and landscape to create a functional, accessible, and sustainable environment. It operates at the intersection of multiple disciplines, including but not limited to architecture, landscape, urban planning, civil engineering, and urban geography. Ensuring that cities evolve in response to social, economic, and environmental needs. However, it is also critical to note the importance of urban planning and design, which is that urban design addresses key aspects such as public spaces, connectivity, building form and massing, social and cultural spaces, and sustainability. Through these aspects, thoughtful urban design enhances the relationship and dialogues between buildings and their surroundings, while prioritizing community well-being, accessibility, and long-term resilience. The mapping process considered 4 focus areas for further investigation of infrastructure, landscape, architecture, and public space. Infrastructure considers what keeps a city running smoothly, whether it's roads, public transport, or digital networks. Well-planned infrastructure ensures people and services can move efficiently and sustainably. Landscape considers green spaces that are more than just decorative. They serve essential environmental functions. Thoughtful landscaping helps cool cities, manage water, and provide much-needed recreational areas for people to enjoy. Architecture considers more than just structures. It defines how we move through and experience a city. Well-designed spaces strike a balance between beauty, practicality, and cultural relevance. Good architecture does not focus on aesthetics, rather on giving back to the city, ensuring cities remain vibrant and engaging. Public space considers the heart of urban life. When designed well, they create opportunities for people to connect, relax, and engage with their surroundings, fostering a sense of belonging in the city. The studio consulted various literature, which surmised the past and present context of the city development, proposing that cities evolve by balancing historical preservation with modern needs. Particularly, Poet 1929 describes cities as living organisms, adapting to change while maintaining identity. Historically, public spaces fostered this identity creation by providing spaces for social and economic interactions that considered community experiences, relationships, and values. However, considering the current urban developments, the increase in car-centric planning and the rise of pseudo-public spaces such as malls has led to the decline of these spaces throughout society, particularly in South Africa, further raising concerns of accessibility and inclusivity in the urban environment. However, the literature additionally presents strategies for successful urban planning that blends structure with flexibility and prioritizes human-scaled, connected environments to ensure thriving, livable cities. Strategies for creating good urban environments included tactical urbanism that reactivates underused and declining spaces, regenerative design that supports ecological and social sustainability, and designing with accessibility in mind. A diverse mix of uses and designs can foster inclusivity and vibrant urban life, while the integration of green spaces supports both biodiversity and human well-being. Strategic planning that encourages well-connected cities minimizes urban sprawl, reduces energy consumption, and lowers infrastructure costs. Ultimately, urban design must maintain a strong sense of place, reflecting cultural, historical, and natural identities, while remaining adaptable to future changes and emerging needs. The Hatfield Precinct Plan sets out 8 key objectives to guide future development, focusing on integration, connectivity, and resilience. These objectives emphasize a stronger relationship between the university and its surroundings, improved public spaces, and enhanced urban identity. Understanding these goals helps us assess how our site can contribute to a more connected and vibrant urban environment. To achieve these objectives, specific strategies and performance qualities are outlined, focusing on flexibility and functionality rather than rigid design rules. Performance qualities such as permeability, connectivity, legibility, and resilience help shape developments that are adaptable and effective in meeting urban needs. These principles will inform our site mapping, allowing us to assess how well the existing urban fabric aligns with these qualities and where improvements can be made. This section introduces the mapping and data collection process that informs our analysis. We begin at the macro level, examining the broader Hatfield precinct. This will include key urban elements such as movement patterns, zoning, land use, and broader spatial dynamics. We then narrow our focus to the surrounding 5-block study area between the main and LC Sports campuses. This analysis will highlight site-specific conditions such as accessibility, connectivity, built environment characteristics, and land use distribution. Lastly, we focus on the human experience within the site. This includes user activity, public space usage, and how people interact with the built environment. Understanding human-scale dynamics helps us design more responsive and engaging spaces.
We'll first analyze the precinct through the lens of zoning, land use, heritage, and circulation. The first map indicates the legislative zoning in terms of Tshwane's town planning scheme. This shows the diversity of the dedicated uses in the area, which provides the opportunity to strengthen the idea of mixed-use development. The following map introduces different land uses interacting with one another and overflowing into other zones. It provides an indication of these blocks consisting of educational, mixed use, transport nodes, residential, and sport and recreation between main campus and LC de Villiers. The following map showcases the heritage and restricted buildings in and around our site. This acts as an informant as to which buildings are significant and could be kept or demolished in our proposals. The next map indicates the housing typologies in and around our site. There is a distinct mix between apartments and houses. It also shows where existing complexes, apartments, or private accommodations are located. It furthermore hints to the trend in which the area is going in terms of high density and low density accommodation and housing. This map indicates the existing yet few transport nodes in an extremely active area. This ultimately contributes to the transient nature of our site. The following map showcases the traffic flow in and around the area. It's clear that it is a high traffic zone that presents an opportunity to facilitate user movement and circulation better. The following map indicates the high pedestrian traffic on site, meaning there's a consistent population moving through the site, yet the site lacks places of rest or repose. And lastly, this map showcases the hindrances such as poor sidewalk conditions and derelict spaces, and contributors, those being sidewalks in good condition, to pedestrian movement through the site and the greater area.
This section shifts our focus from the precinct to the site level, analyzing a 5-block area between the two campuses. Key aspects include public versus private spaces, underutilized or derelict areas, landscape evolution, as well as infrastructure. We now examine how the built environment has changed over time and in and around the site. This includes tracking shifts in building footprints and green spaces over the past 2 decades. A series of maps illustrate the gradual transformation of the area. Key observations are that larger developments are concentrated around the main campus, while the LC campus has seen smaller, more incremental change. There is a slow increase in built structures and a corresponding decline in open green spaces. The designated project site has remained largely unchanged. The university's property boundaries have remained stable for over 20 years. These graphs quantify the observed trends in green space and building footprint changes over time. The second graph tracks the rate of change, helping us understand the pace of development in the area. For this map, we identified the public and private spaces in and around our site. The vast majority of the spaces around our site are mostly private spaces. We also looked at the different fence typologies and the relationship between the spaces, the street, and the user experience. Green space was lost from public footpaths eventually being paved to accommodate the parking of vehicles. Block 1 to 2 suffered a complete loss, while Block 3 onwards remained relatively stable. This map indicates the undesigned, underutilized, unkept, and derelict spaces on site. These neglected spaces range from big abandoned lots to smaller spaces such as sidewalks. Most of these spaces have been forgotten, ignored, or excluded during design and planning processes. These spaces become undesirable, which can lead to even further neglect. This is a map of green spaces in the area. The area has an abundance of green spaces, but often enclosed behind fences on private property. On main campus, tree shading creates spaces for social gatherings and relaxation. These tree-lined walkways offer comfortable routes for navigating the campus. Between the two campuses, tree-lined walkways continue to offer comfortable routes, but vegetation is often enclosed behind fences on private property, creating a divide between the natural environment and people. Infrastructure overshadows nature in these spaces. On Hillcrest campus, tree-lined walkways provide shade. Vegetation and grass fields facilitate various sporting activities. All of this is accessible to the public, but only during certain times of the day.
Lastly, we move on to the people scale. This is where people and users of the site interact with the built environment. This also takes into account the safety and the movement of the users on site. The predominant and secondary users of the site are mapped. Predominant users are the people who occur most on site. Information about their rituals and routines on site are mentioned. Their perceptions of sites are noted, as well as how they tend to be perceived on site. These predominant users include the worker or formal trader, the urban nomad, the staff member, which can be university-affiliated members or general staff or security working in the site area, the university student from various institutions in and around Pretoria, This user is typically characterized as pedestrian on the focus site, but can also be vehicle users. And the driver or commuter. These are typically taxi or bus drivers, which are dominant and tend to be highly favored on site. The secondary users on site are less prevalent or occur in specific areas of the site only. They include parents and school children, diplomats, and consumers. This map relates to the user archetypes and their user activity on the 5 blocks of site. Pedestrian and commuter activity is most prevalent. And for the factors affecting safety, lighting and CCTV infrastructure are evident, yet there are also still abandoned areas. The site is sandwiched between the 2 UP campuses, which are only partially accessible. Public buildings and programs that provide surveillance to the street in the day versus at night are also mapped. All these are factors which contribute to the experience of site being perceived as unsafe. Then for the section along Jan Schauber Street, the existing urban form is shown. Therefore, the dominance of architecture and infrastructure in comparison to the human scale is evident. There is a lack of cohesive balance between the urban components. In summary, a SWOT analysis was collated based on our mapping and the takeaways thereafter. We'll mention a handful of key aspects of the SWOT. The diversity of users, land use, and building typologies are a focal point of the strengths. The weaknesses are largely centered on pedestrian inaccessibility and infrastructure focused on vehicular movement and privatization. The opportunities arise from the weaknesses identified and can inform our strategies, whilst our strategies implemented should aim to work in spite of the existing threats in order to minimize their effects.
Hatfield's urban fabric is shaped by 4 key components: architecture, infrastructure, green space, and public space. However, current development patterns reveal weak relationships and disconnections between these elements, leading to fragmented zoning, weak social thresholds, and underutilized public space. Despite its strengths, such as diverse land use, good accessibility, and infrastructure potential, the area faces challenges like heavy congestion, degraded infrastructure, and a lack of integration between mixed-use developments. Without intervention, continued development along these patterns will reinforce existing weaknesses and threats, including safety concerns, urban fragmentation, and overdevelopment. To create a more sustainable, dynamic, and connected urban environment, we must redefine how these 4 components interact, facilitating better movement, strengthening public engagement, and ensuring a more cohesive and integrated urban future for Hatfield. Targeting specific foci, each group aims to redefine the relationships between these 4 components. Urban change is inevitable. If current development patterns continue, we risk perpetuating the same issues. Therefore, it is our aim to ensure that this change happens responsibly and cohesively, taking environmental, social, and economic conditions into considerations.